Hello, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me. My name is Ivo, and this is a first webinar about layouts. Hope you enjoy your summer. Somebody is working, somebody is on vacation, and I hope you will enjoy this webinar. So, given that some of you have some already experience with layouts and some of you don't, I will use the opportunity to just shortly introduce layouts so that we just have that you all have some common ground and to understand what I'm talking about. The first idea was to actually just show what is new in the 0.8 version, but we will spend maybe 10 minutes just to give some basic understanding about layouts, basically the most common features that layouts offer. So let's try to go through the slides. Shortly about us. And about me, I'm Ivo, I'm the co-founder of Netgen, and Netgen is a web agency from Zagreb, and we built the layouts, and we have 15 years of experience in building complex stuff on web, Easy published since 2004, and Symfony since 2013. And we are working mostly in EU, with some partners and direct clients. And so just to be quite, very fast into the topic, how it all started. We wanted to improve the process of building complex web solutions like probably any other agency, because the process is quite difficult. There's a lot of different people involved, different skills, many different teams, etc. There's always this gap between designers and developers. There's always clients who demand more stuff, etc. So we were trying to make the largest impact in that, and so we tried to find the intersection of those typical web project phases. What is the intersection? What is the common ground for backend developers, front-end developers, UX designers, and content people? And when, I don't know, we kind of got to the point that we figured out it's about layouts and blocks, basically. And to explain this, I will just try to give you the notion of how different people involved in the web project let's say, tackle these layouts and blocks. So backend developers, they implement features that should be placed somewhere on the interface, which is basically a layout, and reuse them when necessary. Front-end people are applying the design to HTML markup, which basically describes the layout. Editors place content in blocks, mostly. And UX designers define interface with a set of layouts and blocks. You can imagine designers drawing first sketches on paper, and that's basically layouts and blocks. So this is just to give you the understanding of why we tackled this layouts and blocks topic. And now, fast forward roughly, I don't know, 1.5 or 2 years. We are now we now have this Netgen Layouts application or system. I will not go in all this, history of development, etc. It doesn't matter in this context. What I will share you is what Netgen Layouts currently is. So the Layouts is a full stack Symfony application, and it uses Symfony routing and Twig features to inject layouts into a normal Symfony routine when it shows the page. So what that means is that we are, when we define a layout, we can also define on which page it will be shown, and then the Symfony code will figure out which layout to show, and it will show it. And we can tightly couple it with any other Symfony full stack app. And of course, we are as Easy experts. We are already doing that with Easy Publish and Easy Platform. And we also did some proof of concept with Silius. And what is also interesting, it could be loosely coupled with any other system, basically, which has a, I don't know, SOAP or REST API. And we also did a very simple proof of concept with Contentful, which is a headless cloud CMS, which has a REST API. So this is just about a bit of an architecture. I don't have more slides. It was just to give you a very quick intro to all those who are not involved with layouts at this stage. I will go to a demo now, which should be much better. Let me try to share my other screen, just a second. Okay. Hopefully you see now a different page. So for all of you that are not familiar with this interface, this is a Netgen admin UI interface. It's not related to layouts. It's something that we improved over the years. There is also an easy platform UI interface, which are both are something that you can use on Easy Publish and Easy Platform. So, so this is what you see is basically Easy Publish content management system. So let's go and click on the layouts, which is a module in this interface. But what is most important to understand is that this is basically a Symfony feature. So this works currently at this interface, but just to quickly show you this other interface, this is the Easy Platform UI interface. You can see the same feature in this other interface. We also have the Netgen layouts. We also have the list of layouts. So quickly, just to show you that we implemented layouts in a decoupled way. So it's not based on Easy Publish. It only requires Symfony full stack. We also have this feature running in, for example, in Silius administration interface. So going back to layouts, we have this listing of layouts. And yeah, by the way, I forgot to mention, you have a chat feature here on Zoom. So if you have any questions, just try to type it in, and I will say it and try to answer it. So, so this is a list of layouts. It looks a bit boring, I must confess. It's not something very interesting if you look at it. It's just a list of layouts, and you can see when it's last modified and what is the layout type. But let's try to create one. So when you go to new layout, you are offered by a layout type, and you can see it from the icon is that it looks something like, you know, how will the layout behave once it's rendered. So, and basically layout type is just it's a twig template with a couple of placeholders, and those placeholders we call zones. So I can do add a name and maybe some description. And this is a very common thing to do, lorem ipsum. And I need to select a layout. So for example, I can do this one. And when I click on create a layout, I go into this mode of managing the blocks on a certain layout. And here you see those placeholders not in a WYSIWYG way. So it's not something that it will look like it looks on the page. By the way, I will show you this Easy Publish instance is it serves our demo page. So what you can see, for example, here is a typical easy page that we created to demo this features of layouts. So you can see this is a front page, etc. I will come to that a bit later. Just to show you that we don't try to, in layouts, we don't try to look like a website. We are more focused on the concepts. So what you see here is we have 5 zones where we can place blocks. So what you can do is have some title added, or you can also add a list to this interface, etc. So it's quite simple. And also you can expect that the drag and drop works, and there are a couple of features like delete and duplicate, etc. And what is also interesting is we have these parameters of a block on the right side, where you can again select a twig template which is used for render this block. And there are a couple of other parameters, for example, CSS class, CSS ID, and stuff like that. So I will not save this one. I will rather open another layout. In this case, I will open a home layout. And now when you look at this layout, this is already populated by a lot of blocks. And this layout is actually rendering the home page of the demo site. And you can see it has, this is a block of 3 items. Then we have a right column, we have a main column with a couple of items. If I go to open this or to see it in the layout, you can see that this one is the grid with 3 layouts, and then we have a title, we have a list of 6 items, we have a right column, etc. What is important also is that blocks, which can be placed in zones, they can hold block items. So some of the blocks, not all of them, for example, title, it's a basic block, so it only has these design options. But if you click on a grid block, you don't have only design options, you also have a content options or parameters. And here we kind of define what content is shown in the block, and we call this these block items are fetched from a collection. And we have 2 types of collections, manual and dynamic. So in this case, this block is a manual collection type, and it has 3 items selected. If I want to add another one or select some other one, it opens another component, which is a content browser. I go to a blog section in Easy. Obviously not working today. Oh, here it is. And I can select some other. I can preview it. It's selected here, and I click here, and it will be added. And I can remove, for example, this one. So again, I have 3. I replaced that one item. So this is a manual block, and if I would publish this now, it would change that one item on the page. Just to show the difference, this block here, it has a dynamic collection type, and again, there is one more feature which is called the query, because dynamic collections can have different queries, and query is basically something that fetches content from a backend system. In this case, we have like two types. We have a standard Easy Publish query. We have a Easy Publish relational list query. You can imagine here, for example, with Silius, you would have a Silius product collection or query. In Contentful, you would have a Contentful query and stuff like that. And then you have additional parameters. like parent location, sorting, etc. You can also, in easy, you can filter by content type and stuff like that. And then what you see is we have like 4 items queried, and they are here. You can see that I cannot move them. I cannot move them around like manual blocks because they are dynamically fetched. But I still have 2 manual ones. So in this case, I could remove this one, and I can also even mix the manual ones with the dynamic ones. This is quite often required, to mix the manual and the dynamic ones. This is quite important features for, at least for our use cases. And yeah, this is mostly regarding the block parameters. Just going quickly through the the block types, like basic ones. This is mostly like titles and maps and external videos. We have listings and galleries. Those are blocks which have collections, so usually have some content to fetch for those blocks. We also have containers. This is something that we introduced with the 0.7 version. So this is a feature that is used when you just need some sort of a 2 or 3 columns container so that you can place some blocks into it. So in this case, I can place this block here, and for example, this block I can move here, and then I would have, sorry, is it here? Should be here. Anyway, it's something that if you need an ad hoc columns, then you don't need to create a zone for it or create a different layout for it. You use containers. And then we have also a bit more advanced blocks, which I don't have time to go into now, but you can always ask questions later. This is basically a tweak block, which is using the content which is rendered by the controller, and the easy content field basically fetching a single easy content field from the backend. So this was about the blocks in the layout. Let's go back to this interface. You can see all these layouts that we have in the system at the moment. There are 2 more quite important features of layouts. It's about shared zones. So just to quickly explain this, you often need to have blocks that are reused across the site, like most commonly it's header and footer, but it could also be pre-footers and right columns, etc. So they are managed here. So if I go and open a right column block, I will see a layout which has blocks in one zone where you manage it. But what you can see here is, okay, this one is actually not used anywhere, but the right column is used in 6 other layouts. So if I go to another layout, for example, let's say the category block, and I open this layout, what you can see here is there are some zones that are red and grayed out. So these blocks are linked to those shared zones. So for example, this one here, we have a special mode for this, which is a linking zone mode. If I go here, I will see that this zone here it's not linked to anywhere, but the right zone is linked to a right column with video. And we can update this, or link to it. So when we go to update link, I will try to find a right column block layout, and there you go. We have this blocks which I want to use on this page, and then I just say select zone. So what I did is I replaced the right column with a different group of blocks, shared blocks. And once I publish this, it will be saved. So this is the feature where you can reuse the same blocks across different layouts, again, around different pages on the site. So all of this would not work as expected, without the last most important features of layouts is mappings. So the mappings is where you connect the pages to the layouts. So you can see here that, for example, the home layout is mapped to a home easy location. So this is the home page. And this is the link. So when a request for the home page comes, it will first go by priority through this list. So this mapping here is the first one to hit, and it will figure out, okay, I'm on home, easy location, I will use the home layout. To give a bit more difficult or more complex example is the article layout, which is applied to the whole subtree in easy, which is home. And this is not just one URL, it's basically the whole all URLs of the whole content stored in easy, but with the additional condition, content type news, articles, blog posts. So it's not all URLs, it's all URLs which belong to news, articles, and blog posts. So if we request a page which is news, it will go through this mapping, and then it will figure out, okay, this is not news, this is not news, okay, this one is news, I will use an article layout version 1. And the article layout version 2 is a bit more specific. It should be for blog posts. That's why it needs to be above. And we have this reorder mappings feature where you can reorder those mappings. So the priorities or the order is quite different. So sorry, it's quite important. So the article layout version 2 mapping needs to be above the version 1. Otherwise, it will never be chosen. Okay, so hopefully there will be questions around these basic functionalities and the most important functionalities, but we can tackle that in a separate calls, whatever. I will try now to go through the new stuff. So what is new in the 0.8 version of layouts? So I already showed you the containers, which were 0.7, which were the feature of 0.7. The most important feature, or the most important focus for the 0.8 version was the performance and how to make the management of caches of layouts much easier, because of, if you go to production, you want to have a performance side. So this is the feature that maybe it was not needed when we started to work on layouts, but of course it started to be quite important once we have the sites in production, and we already have sites in production using layouts. So if you think about the caching, we have caches or managing cachings for layouts and for blocks. So these are two different things. So for layouts, we basically just mark the page which is rendered with a certain layout. We mark it with a layout ID. So why we do it? Because then what we can do is say clear layout cache. This will what this will do is clear all article layout version 1 layout pages and clear those caches. And we don't set the TTL because this is something that is done by the controller. So in this case, we have a content view controller of easy, and it sets the TTL for that page, let's say for 2 hours. But if we change something on this layout and we want to have an impact for all those pages that you are using those layouts, then we need to clear layout cache. And then this will be cleared. This is an HTTP cache, so mostly it will be varnish in front. So we will clear all caches of article layout version 1 pages in varnish. This is the feature of a layout. We also have a similar feature for shared layouts. We can clear linked layout caches. So for example, this right column, it's used in 6 other layouts. So we don't have to clear the caches of right column, because this here is not rendered anywhere by itself. It's rendered as a part of other layouts. So when I click here, click linked layout caches, then I will see those 6 layouts, and then I can clear them all, most probably, or even one by one. But the most important thing is that if you changed something in a right column and you want to clear the caches where it's needed, you basically go here, layout name, and then clear selected, and it will clear the varnish cache. You might ask why we didn't do this in a kind of automatic way. This is something we can of course do. So for example, if you go to a right column and then change something, and if you save it, we could add it in an automatic way so that it clears the caches automatically. But at this point, we didn't want to go too far. Maybe it's better if someone who's doing that knows what it's doing. So it's not a big deal to have the cache cleared in a couple of links. In the future, we can do this with an automatic setting or whatever, especially for smaller sites. For bigger sites, it might be dangerous if somebody changes some small thing and then the whole caches are cleared on the site. It might be dangerous. That's why the manual one is the default one. So if we go now to some layout, for example, the home layout, this was about clearing layout caches. We also have the block level. So the block level is a bit more complex and more interesting. We can, let's say, make a block cached independently from the rest of the page. So by default, layout is cached by a front cache or by HTTP cache based on what view controller of the CMS says. So it can say that it has 2 hours or 2 days of cache, TTL for cache. And then it will be cached on the varnish like that. But what we wanted to do is give option so that certain blocks can be cached independently from the page cache. So what we introduced is this configure cache feature. So what you can do is say enable cache. What that actually does is very simple. It renders this block as a so-called ESI block. And that means it will be rendered, cached independently on varnish. And of course, you can add a TTL too. And this is quite important, for example, on a home page where you have, you want to cache the whole page for, let's say, 2 days, but you have a news block which you want to cache only with a 30 minutes TTL. And here you can see that the information about caching. And of course, once you have this configured, you have the ability to independently clear those caches. So on home page, if you go to clear block caches, you can find this and probably other blocks if you have those blocks declared as independently cached blocks, you can clear those blocks. The caches of those blocks in a manual way, and it goes the same for shared layouts. So for example, let's say maybe, I can't remember, maybe this one. This one doesn't have any related blocks, ESI blocks to cache. Anyway, you understand the concept, hopefully. If you have any questions, just try the chat feature. Okay, so this was about caching. There are a couple of other features that we were eager to implement because of all the experience we have from real projects. So most importantly, it was about user and roles. So how to start creating, how to start enabling the possibility to have different roles for editors or for administrators or etc. Because in real projects, if a user or, for example, an editor does something, for example, on a article layout, and it could potentially do something only on the article layouts, pages. But if you go to a mapping and then if you reorder something or you do something here, you can dramatically change the behavior of the website. So, for example, if you create a new layout which has some target which covers a lot of URLs, and you put it on top of this list, you can change the behavior of a website significantly. So it's kind of what we wanted to do, at least, is to have two roles, different user roles, so that one role, of course, the administrator role can do everything, but there is now an editor role. An editor role cannot actually click on this Netgen Layouts button. So it cannot open the layout mappings, layouts, or shared layouts. He cannot mess with layouts. He cannot create layouts. He cannot mess with mappings, etc. What he can do is open the block manager for each layout in a different way. And this is coming to another feature that we did. And this is a bit related to the Easy platform, but it can also be implemented with other interfaces. So if you look at here, we have a button called Manage Layouts. So this is a homepage content object. In Easy, we added this button. So if I click on this button, what I get is a list of layouts that are applied to home. And of course, this is the home layout, but you can imagine if this mapping is not here, it will go back to the default layout. So the default layout is more or less always there. It's just not rendered because the home layout has a bigger priority. And then the editor user can actually see this manage layouts thing, open this, and then click on edit layout and open this interface here and change blocks, reorder blocks, add blocks, etc. What is missing still is a more granular user policy feature. This is something that, of course, we will do, but it was too complex to do at this point. So we will rather implement as something which we can use immediately, and it's relatively simple and it's relatively useful on the current projects. In the future, it will be possible to have policies like, can I add this block or not? Can I add this block into this zone? Can I move blocks? Can I delete blocks, etc. So this is coming in future, but currently it's not possible. Going back just to show you a bit more about this button. So if I go to blog content, if I click on manage layouts, you will see that I have a category blog mapping. And again, I have the default layout. If I go to, for example, a specific blog post, if I click on manage layouts, you will see those two article layouts. And why do you see this? Because if we change, we can, not here, but in the mappings interface, we can change this priority or this order and influence what layout will be used. But it's so there is a possibility that both of those layouts are used. That's why they are listed here. And of course, the default layout has always a possibility to be shown. If we reorder mappings, etc., it might happen that the default layout is shown. So in this way, the editor can manage most of the layouts, but it cannot mess with mappings, etc. So there were other improvements, a lot of small improvements, a lot of developer experience improvements, etc. For example, if in the layouts, the people who are already using layouts will see the difference in design. We added a bit better experience regarding the mappings. We also added this view here. It depends on the use case which view is better. We also gave more information about the layouts, when it's last modified, how many of references, etc. So this is something that was improved with the 0.8 version. Any questions regarding these changes? Do ask. And if there are no questions, I will quickly go back to the screen, to the slide, sorry, new share, second. Okay, I think I have one more slide. So the future, just quickly, we have a nearby future, which is basically the 0.9 version, which we are already working on. This is something that it's already happening. We have several things on our schedule for 0.9. The most important feature is the translation feature. The translation feature is about how you can translate all the parameters of blocks to different languages. And there will be a mode for each layout. There will be a mode where you can go into select a locale. For example, if the basic layout is in English locale, you can add other locales and then translate the parameters which are translatable. So in our case, we had, for example, a title block with latest news content. This will be translatable with this, and most of our projects are multilingual, so this is quite urgent and needed. I already mentioned granular policies. What is also interesting is multi-site capabilities. This is something we will tackle, maybe not in 0.9 feature, but sorry, 0.9 version, but definitely soon after that. For the 0.9 feature, version, we are also implementing something which is called the change layout type. So if you remember, when I created the layout, I selected the layout type. So currently, there is no way that you can change it for existing layout. So this is something that we will implement, so that once you have a layout with a lot of blocks, if you need to change the layout type, for example, you need one more zone or something like that, it will be very easy to migrate or to change the layout type of an existing layout. And there's plenty of other features that we have in a backlog, but it will be too long to mention them all. What is something that is very important for us is that we have the plan to make the core of the layouts open source. There is no date set, so it's basically when we are ready, we will do it. Don't ask me about when it will be. I'm pretty sure it will not be this year. We still need some things to implement to even think about going open source. And then we also want to make it sustainable with the open core business model, so there will be commercial add-ons on top of the open core. And I think that's, yeah, and integrate with other Symfony-based systems, not just easy. Like I said, we have a lot of things regarding Silius e-commerce already done, so it's quite it's quite there yet, and probably with some other Symfony-based systems, which makes sense. We will see about that. It's not set yet. So this was about the future of, it was about the present, about the 0.8 version, and it was about quickly about future. Hopefully we have some questions now, finally. Okay. So Carlos asked a question, when you can about open sourcing, will everything you just showed us be open source? Okay. Yeah, just to explain a bit about our plans. So we want that the open source part, the open core part, be something that everybody can use, and it should be enough for smaller projects. That's the idea. So it should not be too limited. So it's just something that you can show off, but actually not use on the project. So it should be usable on smaller projects. What we will try to do is, when we think about commercial add-ons, it should be add-ons that are useful in a big project scenario. For example, what I said about granular user policies, this could be a good candidate for a commercial add-on, because on a bigger projects you usually have more personas, more different editors, etc. In smaller projects you usually have less people, so you actually don't need that many personas or too many user roles. So for example like that, or for example what we could do in a commercial as a commercial add-on, we could do some advanced caching, automatic caching or something like that. We can do some sort of advanced preview. So we still need to kind of implement those add-on features. From what you see at this point, I think more or less it will end up in the open source version, because this is the core part is what we have now. So it's very hard to kind of extract something out of it at this point and then use it on a real case scenario. So to give a short answer to Carlos, yes. Okay, Frank asks, what can you show about the Silius implementation? I don't have a demo right now prepared, but regarding the Silius implementation, so I can tell you several things what we did. So we actually have the Easy and Silius integration as an open source project by itself. So whatever we can do with Easy, we can also do on the Easy and Silius integrated platform as well. So this is one thing. What we also did is installed layouts on pure Silius. So there is no Easy without Easy. With that, what we did is we integrated layouts in a Silius beta 2, I think beta 2 was the latest, administration interface. So that's the first thing. The second thing, we integrated content browser, so that when you select the manual items, you can select Silius products. What we also did is just tried it out ourselves, so like created layouts and then applied it to specific product groups or product categories. So what you can do is you can apply a layout to a product, or you can apply it to a taxon, which is a product category. What we didn't do yet, but it's simple to do, is do a collection, a dynamic collection, a query, so that you can actually fetch certain products from Silius it's relatively simple. We will do it with the first project when we do layouts with Silius. So this is what we did. To install it on Silius, it's like anything else that you can install on, like it's a Symfony application or Symfony feature, so it's easy to install it on top of Silius. We have docs, Netgen, we have some technical documentation where you can, there's also installation instructions for purely Symfony or easy installations. So we did a lot, but what we are still waiting for is a first pilot project with Silius. Hopefully this answers your question, Frank. Any other questions? I don't see any activity on chat. Well, we did 46 minutes, so okay, there is more questions, sorry. Frank, is it also possible to do an A/B test? Okay, that's a great question. This is a use case that we, of course, figured out quite soon, and we didn't do it yet, but there's definitely a feature in a backlog for that. So just to describe it quickly, you should be able to add a block on top of one other block and then invoke a question, do you want to A/B test this block with an older block? And then kind of do this in a layout generic way so that you can A/B test any block with any other block on a block level. Regarding layouts, we could do this again on the mapping level, so we could try to figure out how to do it in mappings so that you can A/B test two different layouts. So we didn't do it so far, but it's definitely an interesting feature to implement. A question from Kevin, does publishing content in dynamic collections invalidate the matching blocks? No, at this point. What we need to do is create these, let's say, caching endpoints so that you are able to either, so basically there are two ways how to do it. We will either have an API for that so that you can do it from a CMS, in this case easy, to invoke the block cache invalidation. Or the other option is that we just tag the block with all the content IDs, and then basically the CMS will clear those blocks when it clears the blocks on Varnish by itself. So it could be done in two ways. This is a smaller feature that I'm quite sure we will do very soon, because we also need it on our projects. Okay. Any other questions? Or should we close this one? Hopefully it was interesting for you. If you have any additional questions, of course, you can reach me out on email, on Twitter, on any other channels, on Slack, whatever. And if you need more details about layouts, if you are new to layouts, then we can arrange some direct Skype demo or something like that. Anyway, thanks everybody for joining me, and this will be recorded and I will share it on YouTube, etc. So everybody, cheers and bye-bye.